Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you find yourself in this weird, wild, wacky world of ours, and welcome to the exciting installment of Dragons in Dublin. This evening's scene takes place as Deimos, the Chiasid, newly arrived to the city of Dublin, wends and twists his way up I would describe it as a sheer. On one side of a steep fall off, there is a cliff, and there is an old church that has been built overlooking the cliff on the outskirts of Dublin in the parish of Howth. This is the church that is seen to by Father Martin de Brince, member of the True Way of Clan La Sombra, who have not forgotten their path. And it is that Demos wishes to go and have words with the good father as to the nature of the blood and the nature of other things. So it is not a small church by any means. It is relatively large, and you can tell it was built a long time ago from the crumbling stone and the mortar, the brick. But you can see that lights are on, and you can even hear a hymn coming from within, the song of many voices intermingled together in praise of some higher purpose or being, though you don't know the hymn itself.
All right, is it in Latin?
No, it's in English, but it's not one that you've ever heard before.
All right, and in the church itself, is it dilapidated?
No, it's not dilapidated. It is crumbling. It is an old building, but it is a well-maintained building. If that.
All right, yes. So the door is open?
The door is not open, but as you can push it open, it is unlocked, and you walk in and you see the sight of a number of individuals dressed in choir robes. So they're dressed in an overrobe of purple and gold as they're singing a hymn. There's about 25 of them, and you see priest Father de Brince standing in front of them, conducting the song that is currently being sung. His hands moving in rhythmic gestures, etc.
All right, so as I enter the church, firstly I will cross myself, and I will do so in the fashion of the Orthodox way. And
That's basically using the left hand, isn't it?
it's right hand. The only difference is you don't do it with all fingers, with an open palm. You just do it with the first three fingers to signify the Trinity. And
Oh,
you go up, down, right, left.
there we go. Cool. Continue.
It's and is the church empty? Is it just the choir and the father, or are there people within?
No, it's just that you can probably ascertain that there's choir practice basically, and that is what you're doing.
All right. I will sit somewhere where I do not disturb them, and I will let them complete their practice.
As the hymn comes to a close, because you've arrived at about, we'll say, 9:30 in the evening, so it's relatively late. The father will bring his hands together as the hymn ends, and he will say, "Thank you, everyone, for your time. It is most appreciated. I will see you again this time 2 weeks. We will be working on Ave Maria Gloriae Sentimata. I wish you all a good evening." And the group will break up. People will go and they will reclaim handbags and other accoutrements from the first few rows of the pews. They will have a few moments of conversation with the father, who is being more like a genteel host than anything else. As they start to file out of the church, he will walk slowly down between the pews until he sees you kind of tucked in at the side, and he will say, "Ah, I do beg your pardon, Mr. Deimos, that was your name, yes?"
Father de Brins, I was looking very much forward to the opportunity to see you again. I approach him and I take out from my jacket, from my pocket, a small box wrapped in gift paper.
Oh,
I wouldn't be the first Greek to come visit someone's domain empty-handed.
I tell you what, I will just lock up the front door. If you'd care to step in the back through into the vestry, I will be through in a moment.
As you wish, Father, by all means.
You will take there's a door down to the left-hand side of the altar that leads you into a smaller room where you can see the various robes and accoutrements of the church's official day-to-day running, so the robes of the priests, etc., etc. Prince will walk through with you about 5 minutes later, having locked up the front door of the church so more people don't amble in. He will take you then into a small office off to the left-hand side of the vestry that is dominated by a large black wooden desk that he sits behind. There are a number of very large old books that are written in a very spider-like script that have been in bookshelves. You can assume that these are probably the church records, because most churches in Ireland keep very meticulous records. But he will sit down in a chair. He will denote for you to take the other chair that is on the opposite side of his desk, and he will open your gift. What is inside?
All right, so he will immediately recognize what it is. It's a very old charm. It's a superstition that dates back. It's a Greek medieval superstition that dates back to Constantinople. It's a small. It looks like, they call it the eye. It's a jewel that resembles an eye, and actually, what it does is it protects the one who owns it from the evil eye. And what does it mean? Constantinople, in the Dark Ages, was the wealthiest city in the known world. So the Greeks of Constantinople believed they were the envy of the world because of their wealth. So this was a charm that would protect them exactly from this envy. So now, if he looks closer into the symbolism of this, he will perhaps think, now, what happened to Constantinople? It was conquered by the Fourth Crusade, by the Franks, by the Christians of the West. So maybe it's something like, here's a time to protect you from the evil eye, but also it's a reminder that the capital of Eastern Christianity was attacked by the West because of the envy of the West to the East.
He will smile approvingly down at the gift, and he will say, "Old meanings are seldom heard nowadays. However, it is interesting when one is presented with one. I thank you for your very thoughtful gift, Mr. Deimos."
Mr. Debrain, I thank you for the invitation. I don't know if I told you last time, but my sire originated from Constantinople during the last decades of its splendor, of the Byzantine splendor. He lived in the Paleologian dynasty, which means that he missed very important events, like the Schism, the Fourth Crusade. Now, I'm a student of history, but as I have come to know since my embrace, what we learned as men is only the surface of what transpired. Unfortunately, my sire was not alive during those events, so my hope was perhaps you could illuminate me. In short, what caused the Fourth Crusade?
That is a very interesting question. Sorry, continue.
Now, if you want, we can do this out of character.
In what way?
Well, the question is, how far would the Brins want to go to this explanation?
You will see.
All right, up to you.
He is a pretty honest individual, so he will say, the Crusades were a myriad of reasonings and complicated social and political movements. Ultimately, there was a fear that was represented and resonated throughout Christianity, or throughout our kind at the time. Let me ask you a question, and this is, I'm not sure if your sire would have spoken to you about it. What, if anything, did he ever tell you about the concept, the ideal that was the dream?
All right, now you tell me how much my character would know of this. Now, I'm guessing, since the sire was born in the 14th century, he wasn't around when the Trinity was kicking.
No, no. Obviously, the
He
Trinity.
missed Michael, he missed Antonius, he missed the Dracon.
I think that the Draken is the only one of them that's still alive, but he was definitely gone at that point. He left.
He had gone to Cyprus.
Yeah, and Michael was dead.
Michael was dead since the Fourth Crusade.
Yep. So he will, but he will have told. I tell you what, he will have told you the concepts of the dream because it was still a very big part of living in that era. Because there were kindred alive who remembered. You know, the concept of building a new Eden was a pretty big idea. You know.
Mr. The Brains, I know of the term. Oh, sorry, I cannot hear you. There's a lot of static.
Oh, sorry.
I have only heard of the term. I couldn't go deeper into it.
Long ago, well, maybe not long for some of us who have long memories. 3 individuals. He holds up 3 fingers. Came together in Constantinople long ago, and they came up with the concept of our kind that defied the nature of what would become the Camarilla. And essentially, they proposed a new Eden on Earth, wherein our kind and humanity could coexist in peaceful harmony, wherein we could build a new utopia together. And in Constantinople, they practiced this to a limited degree. And in many ways, this caused great fear in our communities elsewhere. People viewed this as abomination, as wrong. Many of the great princes viewed it as a threat to their power. And so it was when it became clear that the trinity of these individuals had been broken. The West struck the East with a hammer blow in order to rid themselves of this problem once and for all. And so, in Constantinople in the year 1204, the dream died, when it was that the Hagia Sophia burned, and the last of the 3, the Patriarch Michael of Constantinople, and Methuselah of Clan Toreador, met his end in the flames.
Well, sir, the question that I would ask is, you say the West. Would you? That seems very anonymous to me. Would it be Venice? Would it be Rome?
Rome called the crusade, though, in all honesty, it was not intended. Constantinople was not necessarily the intended target of the crusade. It became the target of the ambitions of the individuals whom led the crusade, having been prompted by several powerful entities. I was only freshly reborn again in night when this took place, so I cannot say.
So you wouldn't know that whether these entities or not faced judgment for what they did.
Why? I ask you a question. When someone wields power, is it so that they when someone wields enough power, can they not simply sidestep the consequences of their actions?
I've never been in such a position, but I would say that when you hold such power, the same rules apply to you as everyone else.
Take, for example, the edicts of, let us use an example of a luminary. Prince Mithras of the baronies of Albion once cast forth all of the Tremere in his land. He threw them to the winds, he threw them to the sea. Did he suffer any repercussions for this? No, because he was Prince Mithras. And to raise your hand against him was to raise your hand against a personification of near divinity. Ultimately, unfortunately, it is the powerful who make the rules, and it is those who lack the power to resist them who must live under them as they are enchained.
There lies great wisdom in what you say, and a great quest as well.
Mm. I'm an individual who believes in. They call my brothers and sisters the Sombra and Tribune because we do not follow the barbaric ways of the Sabbat. However, I have had enough barbarism in my life to last 1,000 lifetimes. So I simply wish to sit and learn and to teach, because I do not wish a world in which we are all simply choked in our own bile, our own blood, and our own hatred.
Well, Father, thank you very much for your wisdom tonight, and let me tell you, if I can ever be helpful in any manner, it would be my honor.
May I ask why it is that the subject of a very long time ago interests you?
I wouldn't say that it's a trait of my clan. I was a history enthusiast even before the embrace. But like I told you, ever since the embrace, I realized that everything I had been studying all along was just the surface. And call it curiosity? Ah, I think it's a great purpose to spend eternity. Finding out what lies beneath.
To understand oneself, one must understand what has come before, so they can see the road ahead.
Fully agreed.
So, I'm curious, Mr. Demos, what is it that you intend to do with your time in Dublin now that you've become an accepted luminary of our undead society?
I am in this wonderful position to say that I did not prepare for this. I was expecting to be running, hiding, looking behind my shoulder, and I find myself extremely fortunate to what I anticipated. So this is something that I did not prepare for.
Yes, but I'm saying now that you are here, now that you are in this position, where do you go from here? What is the next step in your path, as it were?
Well, I just hope I can become a productive member of this society that was so generous to me.
You see, I consider you to be. He contemplates his next words. I consider you to be likened to my blood, and there's significance in that to me, as I do not meet many individuals whom are likened to my blood. There are not many of us. So,
Marconius
is
was indeed
there.
your progeny.
Yes, indeed. So, I am curious if there is any small service that I may do so that you may have a place to stand or work to do, a place to call your own.
Well, Mr. De Brins, I would ask the opposite. Is there any service that I could perform for you?
He contemplates, he sits back in his chair and he closes his eyes and he says, maybe. Maybe there is.
I very much wish to return the kindness of this discussion we had.
What was your career before you were forced to leave Athens?
I was a humble owner of a bookstore. I know it's not very exciting, but to me it was everything.
You will see him stand up and he opens a cabinet and he sits back down in his chair. He is one of these individuals. He opens a checkbook. You never see a checkbook anymore. Like, let's be fair. When's the last time you ever saw a checkbook? Though they are still accepted, because I had to check this the other day. And you'll see him scribble on the checkbook. Scribble, 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 scribble. And he will put the check down, face down on the table, and he will push it across to you.
So I take a look. How many digits?
He will say, that should be sufficient for you to acquire a new bookstore.
I look at it.
It is indeed sufficient for you to acquire a new bookstore.
I do not understand, Mr. De Brins.
Ultimately, you said if there was a way that you could be of service to me, and the answer to that is yes, there is. I need someone who is able to understand the occult and historical circles in Dublin in a more hands-on way than I'm currently capable of. And what better way than to set you up with your own establishment so that people will eventually start to come to you?
Frankly, sir, I'm out of words. I take his hand, and like a Brit, I kiss it.
He will put his hand on your head, and he will utter a small blessing,
Mhm.
and he will say, "This is not an act of charity, my son. This is a. There are many things in the city that are unnatural, and I wish to understand the fact that they are moving, if that makes sense."
Well, I assure you, I could not hope for something more fascinating than this. I will not do it just because of gratitude. I will put my heart and soul into it.
Of this, I have no doubt. You should. If he will contemplate, and he'll nod, and he'll say, "I am led to understand that you were already seeking documentation under a new name, etc. That should be sufficient for you to open a bank account and clear that check, and then you may find the location for you to build your new business."
Father, my gratitude again.
Once again, as I have said, Demas, this is not an act of charity. This is an act of mutual benefit.
I hope this is the case. Until next time, Father.
May the Lord always watch you whatever steps that you might take, my son.
I cross myself, bow my head, and walk away.
All right, and if that is it, then thank you, players, for playing. Thank you, watchers, for watching. This has been another Scene in Darkness in Dublin. Have a pleasant evening.